Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hey, this is Lisa, and if you want to catch up with me on Twitter, you can find me at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram, I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon, www.patreon.com/I Love That Movie. The show is always free, but if you want to support us on there, you can, and want to take a quick moment to thank our top patrons, Chris Balga, Jeff Widman, Michael Cross, and Philip Barker. Thanks, guys, so much for keeping the lights on. We've also got a website, I love that movie podcast.com. And if you like today's episode, you should join us for the after party. We will have a follow-up episode on Get Vokl that will be live, and we'll just kind of chat and get your guys' feedback, and we'll probably talk about all things Star Wars. So if that interests you, please join us there. I'll have a link in the description. We also have a Discord and we have Facebook groups. So plenty of places to reach out and talk to us. And if you like what you heard today, please take a moment to subscribe and rate this show. It does help new listeners find us. So I've got a returning guest on the show today. I have Joe. Say hi, Joe.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, it's been a little while since you've been on, and so I'm glad to have you back. You had told me you wanted to talk about this movie back when we first recorded, and my guest always chooses the movie. So, which movie did you want to talk about today?
The Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens.
Perfect. And Joe, if people haven't heard you on the show before, did you want to take a moment and just kind of introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your love for movies and whatnot?
Yeah, I'm Joseph. I'm on Twitter at the Joe George. Um, I don't have any podcast yet or anything, but I really do love movies. I grew up as a 90s blockbuster VHS kid, so that was kind of my life. And yeah, just cultivated this love of this craft. So, and the Star Wars part of it happens when I was 3 months old.
Really, that's young.
Yeah, yeah. My mom sat me down in front of the TV when New Hope was playing. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I'm glad that you picked this movie to talk about. This came out in 2015. I won't ask you if you saw it in theaters because I'm assuming you did.
Oh yes, I did. Opening night.
That's awesome. Yeah, me too. I remember, I don't know if you felt this way, but I was so excited. It was like, I don't know, it was just like this is all coming back. We get to do this again, and it had been so long.
Yes, it had. Yeah. The excitement, the anticipation, the nervousness about getting tickets. That's a whole other story.
Yeah, yeah. I think too what happened to me was I think somebody bought the tickets for me. I might have been my friend Josh, I can't remember. But somebody had the foresight to like reserve them early. I think I
Right.
went home early from work and all that stuff. And something I'm definitely missing right now, that experience. So it's definitely fun to watch this and kind of relive that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to say before I continue that this show is not spoiler free. So if you haven't seen this, and I mean, you've had time, but if you haven't seen this movie yet, definitely stop, go watch it, come back. But I'm going to read the synopsis really quick before we kind of dive into more of the discussion. As a new threat to the galaxy rises, Rey, a desert scavenger, and Finn, an ex-stormtrooper, must join Han Solo and Chewbacca to search for the one hope of restoring peace. Kind of a quick synopsis there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It
well, it kind of
it
sums it
sums
up
it
pretty
up
well.
as much as it could.
Yeah. Um, in this part of the show, and I know you said you did some research, so you probably want to chime in with your facts too. I've got
Okay.
a couple quick facts, and definitely respond and react to them, and then we can run over some of yours too after that if you want.
All right.
All right. So the first one I have is that John Williams received his 50th Oscar nomination for scoring this film.
Yeah. I mean, that's his music is just basically another character to these movies. So
Oh, for sure, and I feel like he's, like, the soundtrack to, like, our lives. I know that's
yes,
dramatic, but,
definitely.
I mean, I went, last year to the Dallas Symphony Orchestra had the series where they did all this Christmas stuff, and one of the nights they did John Williams music, and it was,
Mm,
like, mainly the Christmas music, so, like, Home Alone and, I think they
right.
threw in some, like, Harry Potter, but of course they still had Star Wars, and, like, the conductor had, like, a lightsaber during those, songs, but it made me realize, I mean, well, I guess I already knew, but reminded me of the
Right.
fact that so much of the movies that I grew up with and listened to were all scored by him. And in some ways, like there were some tracks in this movie that kind of reminded me that like it was a little Christmas sounding to me. Like
Hmm.
in the beginning with Ray when
Oh
she's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
Her theme.
her theme sounds like a little Christmassy, like, I don't know, but I like it, of course, but, I was just thinking about that, I'm like, "Maybe it sounds Christmassy to me because he kind of defined Christmas for me,"
Yeah,
with so many
yeah.
movies. But yeah, I liked that fact. Here's something I hadn't heard before. Rey's outfit is inspired by early drawings from the Star Wars concept artist Ralph McQuarrie for Luke Skywalker at a point when he and Lucas were playing around with the idea of making Luke a female character. Had you heard
That's
that
right.
before?
Yep, yep. That's
Nice.
what's one of the things that I love about these that Disney when Disney took over for these movies is they're using a whole lot of concept art that hadn't been used before.
Huh,
So
that's such a good way to make sure that it feels like a Star Wars film, you
right.
know? It's like, yes, it's new content, but if they use some of the old designs, it puts you right back in that universe.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, before I knew that, I definitely thought, Rey's outfit echoes Luke's attire just in terms of like the color palette. She
Right.
starts off in the desert the way Luke did, kind of like on a farm. So it, definitely reminded me of it, but hearing that piece of it I thought was super interesting. Um, and the last one I had was that after publicly declining to direct a new Star Wars film, J.J. Abrams was visited at his Bad Robot office by Kathleen Kennedy, and their negotiations lasted over a month, during which time Abrams' central concern was the vast magnitude and cultural significance of this project.
Um, I mean, I envy and do not envy any director taking on a Star Wars movie.
I mean, no lie, right? Because I mean, what he was worried about essentially happened. I
Right.
mean, I love this movie, and I know that people have mixed emotions, or very strong emotions about the entire trilogy.
Hmm.
But you're right, like it was pretty much an impossible ask. I mean,
Yes.
in a way, like Lucas himself had in some
Enough.
ways failed to recapture the originals with the prequels. There was a
Right.
lot
Right.
of hate for that. So walking into that, not even being George Lucas, is like an even bigger ask. And, Abrams had already done Star Trek,
Yeah. Hmm.
which, I love his take on Star Trek. I
Oh yes,
thought,
so do I.
oh, good, good. Yeah, I love them. I think that they're done so well, and, I remember I've had friends that said, "Oh, this is so much better. I never liked the original series, and, this is such a better version." And I'm like, "Man, but you should really go back and watch those then, because maybe you do like it." Because it was so faithful in many ways to the
Hmm.
original. I mean, it updated it, but it
Right.
it paid homage to it in a way that it didn't feel like it was trying to replace it. And I think that's what he wanted to do with
with
his take on
this.
Star Wars,
Yep,
you
exactly.
know. And so I personally really like it, but you're so right. It's just anyone that sits in that director's chair has got to be
Yeah,
nervous.
yeah. And was the latest one is was Taika Waititi.
Oh yeah, yeah. He
So,
right. And people have mixed emotions about Thor Ragnarok. I loved it.
I loved it
Um
too.
yeah, and I loved what he did on The Mandalorian, so I'm
Mhm.
all on board.
Yep.
Um I did hear recently that Kathleen Kennedy, I think I heard this on Zacky's show, but she said something to the effect of like, we're going to table this and think about all this for a while as to what direction everything is going to take going forward, which, in some ways it's like nothing is really moving forward that fast
Right.
right now anyway. But yeah, it's like looking back at like how this was received, Solo,
Right.
um so far the Mandalorian's been the only one that's been sort of unanimously.
That and Rogue One.
Yeah, Rogue One, you're right. Ah, I love Rogue One too. But
Yep.
yeah, it's like I think, we'll see what happens, but I certainly hope that he stays on that project, and I liked his episodes. I thought he did a really good job with them, so
He did.
I look forward to seeing them.
Mm.
So back to this movie. Did you have any quick facts you wanted to throw out there real quick before we.
Some of them are the stormtrooper costumes were inspired by Apple products.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I could totally see that.
Uh, yeah, it was like after I said that, I looked at my iPhone. I was like, oh yeah, you're right.
I'm talking to you on my MacBook Pro, so
Ooh.
I have an iPad, a MacBook, an iPhone. Actually, two iPhones, an iPhone for work. So it's definitely taken over my life. I watched this on Apple TV, so
Yep.
there is something a little fascist about it.
Yeah. Um,
That is funny though. I love that.
for some of the visuals, J.J. Abrams looked to films directed by John Ford, Akira Kurosawa, and Terrence Malick.
Ooh, I can totally see that, especially the Akira Kurosawa.
Yeah.
I think just because I've been watching so many, like now that we have HBO Max, we've been watching some
Mhm.
more classic films, and I was like, I know this is so embarrassing to admit, especially since I do this podcast, but
Right.
sometimes it's hard to find a time to really just sit down and watch and read. So like a
Hmm.
lot of, his work I haven't seen, and usually like on a Sunday afternoon or something I'm like, okay, now I'm ready. I'm focused. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm going to
Right.
watch this movie and read these subtitles. And I know that Hidden Fortress was a big inspiration for the original Star
Yeah.
Wars movie.
Mhm.
Um and I do feel like when you watch this one, it feels like Abrams went back to that well, and you know, got some great inspiration from there
Right.
too.
One of the alternate titles was taken from a expanded universe novel called Shadows of the Empire.
Oh, what do you think? Which title do you like better then?
I like The Force Awakens better.
Mm. Have you seen that funny video that's like what all the Star Wars movies should have been named? Have
I
you
don't
watched
think
it?
I've seen that one.
Oh man, I have to send it to you. It was this kid, like a really young kid on like TikTok. He was like, all the Star Wars movie names are out of order, and I'll show you why. And he like rearranges all of them to different movies, and you're like, dang, yes, I'll send it to you. You'll get
All
a kick
right.
out of it. But yeah, no, I agree. I like The Force Awakens. Especially being the first in this trilogy, it's just so exciting. It's like it's
Hmm.
almost like entitling it, Star Wars is back. you know.
Right.
So, I agree with you there.
That I mean, everything else is pretty much all. I got a whole lot of expanded universe stuff in here too.
Oh, nice.
Oh, so for Captain Phasma, her stormtrooper armor was inspired JJ to call her Phasma based on the movie Phantasm with the chrome ball.
Oh, okay. I kind of wondered where that name came from.
Yep.
She's so cool, and like a lot of people were upset, the way that
Mhm.
she, well, I guess it's a spoiler, but yeah, the way she exits the series. But
Right,
I kind of liked it because I don't know, it's like Boba Fett or something. It's like you kind of want a
right.
little taste and then for them to go away, you know.
See, I was expecting her to come back in Rise of Skywalker
I
just
wouldn't have
because.
complained if she had come back because I did like the
Yeah,
concept of her and loved her on Game of Thrones. So, it was disappointing, but sometimes I was like, it's okay to like introduce a character and use
right.
them in a small way too, because I think the original series did that a little bit with some of the
Yeah.
characters. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, it was like I think he likened her to South Park's Kenny, where she
Really?
just kept dying but coming back.
Yeah, it did feel like that a little bit.
So yeah. Um, oh, Andy Circus coached Lupita Nyong'o on performance capture because she had never done it.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I will say that when we watched this movie last night, I was like, I just started clapping. I was like, more Maz. We needed more Maz. I just
Yes,
love that character. And I mean, she's in it a few times, but sometimes I'm like, I feel like in this movie, I almost thought we were going to get more of her than we ended up getting in the
hmm
trilogy. And I would have liked that, I think.
and it was based on one of JJ's teachers.
Aw, that's so sweet. She was like a sweet, like an even more, like a nurturing, sweet Yoda almost.
Right.
I think that's why maybe I thought we were gonna see her more than we did. I mean, I appreciated her every time we saw her, but I was like, I would have liked even more. We need
Yeah.
a Moz show or something.
Oh, yes.
It's cool too, like that casting choice having Lupita voice her because she's so young,
Yes.
and she plays her Moz so well. Um,
And it was one of the things after I watched it, I was like, I just want her to shout my name. That's
yes.
all I want in life. Yeah, that's all I have for little tidbits.
Okay, no problem. Let's also dive into some of your favorite scenes.
All right. um, the first one I really loved was the graveyard of all the destroyed starships, star
Yes,
destroyers, X-wings, Tie fighters, just wreckage everywhere.
that was really cool.
And yeah, just seeing that, and then later on having the Falcon fly through it all was just, oh,
I love the way the Falcon's introduced too. Like,
yeah,
where she's like, let's fly this ship, and he's like, how about that one? She's like, that one's garbage, and then it ends up being the Millennium Falcon, which
yeah.
is just perfect.
Oh, that was one of the other things was some concept art for Jabba's palace for Return of the Jedi. Had that thing, I guess that gate where she just crashes the Falcon through when they were
Oh,
trying.
really?
Yeah,
So they kind of like peppered in some of this
right.
stuff.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Another one I really loved was Ray's vision.
Oh yeah,
Just seeing bits and pieces and just the mystery of it all.
it's so interesting in this movie the way like, especially knowing how it like ends up because
Mhm.
Um, there's that scene with Han Solo and Maz in like the cantina type thing
Right.
in her work or whatever you want to call it, her watering hole, as he
Yeah.
called it. But she says, "Who's the girl?" And they kind of
Mhm.
you see the back of Han Solo, and it felt like they were implying he knew who she was, but then later it's like they didn't. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to go back and watch back when all the possibilities were so open ended, like you said, it was such a big mystery.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like that too. And plus, because I'd never seen so much green in the entire. Um, yeah, he's just Han just like looks at her like, oh, poor
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah, they have a
Um,
lot of good moments where they connect. And, a
yes.
lot of that is also coming from her, wishing she wishing her parents were here and him wishing his son was there.
Yeah. Another one is the one single shot of Poe shooting down 9 TIE fighters and also groups
Yes.
of stormtroopers.
Yeah, you can see why he became such a fan favorite. So Oscar Isaac, as Poe Dameron, he's one of my favorite actors. He's in a lot of great stuff, but he was supposed to like die as this character pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think is at the beginning where you weren't unsure if he lived or not.
Right. I was even saying last night I was thinking about it and I was like, so his jacket's there, it's totally burned up. I mean, you can totally see how they would just that was supposed to be the end of him.
Right.
But he's just so likable and is sort
Hmm.
of a Han Solo-esque character that I don't know, it's like I guess during filming they were like, "You know what? Actually, we need like a lot more of you." I also read that Oscar Isaacs was like a huge fan. I remember I've even seen this in interviews that he and his
Hmm.
whole family used to like dress up and go to the Star Wars premieres.
Right. Yeah.
And his uncle in particular was like a really big fan. And when Abrams found out, he let him bring him on set and even let him be an extra. I think in that market scene in
Yeah,
like
it was
when
Oz's castle.
oh Maz's castle. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, that's really cool, and I'm glad that he stuck around as a character.
Oh yes, me too. And especially out of the context of this movie, seeing his arc throughout the trilogy is really I one of the things I enjoyed.
I do too because he sort of starts out as like a hotshot pilot,
Yeah.
but he takes such a different arc than Han Solo did.
Hmm.
Like in some ways he's similar, but he goes down a different path.
Right. Where Han just kind of leaves the rebellion, but essentially Poe takes it over.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of my last things was the Sword and the Stone take with Ray and the lightsaber.
Ooh, okay, tell me about that.
What was this? Both of them were reaching for it in Kylo Ren and Ray, or you
Oh,
only
yeah.
saw Kylo Ren reaching for the lightsaber in the snow, and it kind of like moves a little bit. To me, it inspires the Sword and the Stone type.
I completely agree with you. And even more than that, I think that so, I've had some friends that were not a big fan of Kylo Ren, and they
Mhm.
were like, "Well, when he takes off the mask, he looks like a kid. Like he looks, so young and
Right,
so unintimidating." And I was like, I number one, I like that because it's different. It's refreshingly different that he
it
doesn't
is.
it's like he's a monster, but he is just a person. And in
Mm-hmm.
real life, that's how it is. Like, people that commit the atrocities or do bad things, they're just people.
Yeah.
And I also thought that his hair style made him look like almost like a prince. It looked medieval to me.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, in the older, Star Wars, they lean heavily onto the samurai thing, the Jedi robes and things like that. But in some ways, I felt like both Kylo Ren and Rey looked sort of almost like medieval. So when you bring up that part about the sword and the stone moment, it definitely, like, I can definitely see that because his character mainly, but yeah, I got that vibe from him.
Yeah, even looking at his costume, it gives off that vibe. Plus his lightsaber.
Yes, it looks like a sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I liked all that stuff. All that aesthetic was definitely working for me.
And yeah, and you're just unsure of who's going to get the lightsaber, and it just flies past him. You're like, oh, okay.
I will say too, one thing that I've seen a lot on the internet, and I tend to agree with, is John Boyega's Finn. I was really excited about that casting because
Mhm.
I had seen Attack the Block,
Right.
and plus it was just cool that they were casting a black actor
Mhm.
in a prominent role in this franchise.
One
I
of the
will
lead.
say that. Oh, go ahead.
So one of the lead roles.
Yeah, and so, like, I was very excited about it, and I remember the poster had him with, like, a lightsaber, and
Hmm.
we knew he was a stormtrooper. There was just a lot of mystery around his character. I think as the movies went on, I'm not totally satisfied with his arc. I don't know, I almost feel like because Poe's there, and Kylo Ren, like, almost like those that pool of people got kinda crowded, and I don't know that his arc ended up going the way that it was, like, originally intended, and I've heard a lot of people kind of be upset about that, that, like, him being able to wield a lightsaber and other things, like, it felt like he was gonna take a bigger role, and then, in the second movie, he spends half of it kind of out for the count or off doing a side quest, and
Mhm.
at first I disagreed, but the more that I think about it, I especially when you watch the first one and see how much potential the character has, I
Right.
kind of agree because in this movie, he battles Kylo Ren with a lightsaber,
Mhm.
and then he finally gets kind of, like, knocked down, and then Rey has that, sword in the stone moment. But it really felt like they were both more I mean, later her power is gonna grow a lot more, but it felt like they were both, like, more equal, and I kinda thought he was gonna be more in the thick of it when it comes to Kylo than he ended
Right.
up being. He does get a good moment in the 3rd film, at least one, but just in general, I thought we were gonna have more of him, and I think he's even expressed that he feels that way, and,
Mhm.
hopefully he gets something in the future that he
Yeah,
gets to shine a little more.
I really hope there's like either some kind of book series or comic books or something that gives more about what happens afterwards with him
Yeah,
maybe training to be a Jedi.
that would be really cool because I felt like I don't know, like, he has such a good background because, like, he's a stormtrooper and he's been taught this way his whole life, and then he rebels against that, and he spends
Yeah.
a lot of the series trying to figure out who he is, like, how to stop running, how to fight back, and he's got some great moments. Yeah, it's like, I feel like his story isn't over. I would like to see more of that for sure.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, with all the trailers leading up to the movie, it only showed Finn with the lightsaber or Han mentioning the Jedi, and you see Poe like patting Finn. So it's just always associated with Finn as a Jedi or
Yeah,
a
you're
Force
right. I
user,
forgot about that.
and so and then you're watching the movie, you're like, okay, you kind of see something's clicking that he knows it's wrong. Um, and then him fighting Kylo Ren, and well, the first time I was just like, oh, it's awesome. Uh,
Yeah.
but the second time I noticed that basically Kylo Ren's just toying with him.
Yeah, yeah,
So he actually like wounds Kylo, and then he's like,
yeah.
"Okay, I'm taking you out. Bye."
Right, he was kinda throwing his weight around on this, quote unquote "traitor,"
Yeah,
but when he actually got him, he was like, "Okay." And, like, a lot of people had a problem with Rey being so new and, being able to hurt Kylo, but yeah, he was already severely injured
yeah,
from what Finn did, so
twice,
he was, like,
and plus Chewbacca.
barely. Yeah, oh yeah, and Chewbacca, which that weapon would have killed most people, I
Yeah,
think, but he somehow, all he's injured badly, but that's the only reason why they're able to get an upper hand on him, I think, and
hmm,
it's sort of like I think it pushes forward that idea about, like, them being a team
yeah,
is sort of established here, like, they can take Kylo down because they're on a team, whereas Kylo doesn't have a real team. I mean, he does, but they're not loyal to him, they don't love him.
right, right,
Um, and that's usually how good defeats evil, right?
exactly. Even
So,
in
yeah, no.
even in Harry Potter,
Yeah,
he's like,
exactly.
I have
It's like,
friends.
"Yeah, I have friends." Yeah, and also I like that scene because there's just something really exciting about, um, the lightsabers, like in the original and now,
Hmm.
you can see, like, their reflection on things,
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
crackle of Kylo Ren's saber, it feels like there's real heat there, and then that with the snow and the way that it interacts with the snow, I liked all that stuff,
Yeah, yeah. That was one of
so
the things I've noticed watching some behind the scenes is they're using um, actual proper replica sword lightsaber special effects swords that you
Oh,
can
really?
buy off Amazon.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because I have Luke's lightsaber, the Anakin Luke lightsaber, right? Too.
We have a few lightsabers as well, as you know.
Yeah.
The only Star Wars costume I have is a Luke Skywalker costume, so I would like to have more though. Um, yeah, I
But
don't know. There's
yeah,
just something really fun about those, and
oh yeah,
I've learned a lot more about them since Nick started building them. He tells me about all the different lightsabers.
yeah. But those are the lightsabers that they used in the movie, so that's why you get that reflection
Ah,
and
okay.
everything off of them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite scenes?
I really like the interaction between Han and Leia.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
I feel that their love story being the way that it is makes a lot of sense, and I like it. This
yeah.
idea that they had Ben, and then he, did something terrible and it separated them. It's almost like when a child passes away and, or something horrible and tragic happens in a relationship and the two people separate. I thought that made a lot of sense. And I got the feeling that, they never stopped loving each other. It's just that
Mhm.
the event itself is so painful they can't really be together. Cuz
Right,
Finn calls him like a general of the resistance, right? So like at
right.
one time he had like a high position.
Yeah, it was a Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Duh. But yeah, so like just his journey leaving all that and everything to me makes sense even if they didn't have the kid, but at
Mm,
least having the kid makes it you're not mad at him for leaving.
right, yeah.
And it's so Han Solo to like, I mean, it's in the name Solo
And
like
then plus, if you've gone through something similar to that, you really understand.
yeah. And let's see, they're not all going to be Han Solo scenes, I promise. But I also like when they're on the Millennium Falcon and all those people come to collect from Han that he's
Oh
screwed
yeah,
over
yeah.
because he never really learns to stop doing that.
No,
And I thought it was really genius when Ray accidentally lets out all those creatures and they take everybody out. I thought that
yeah.
was a really fun scene.
No, that's one of the things that's kind of interesting in the Star Wars movies is the humor is like in this movie is perfect because it's really subtle. He's like,
Hmm.
you've cheated us twice. He's like counting. He's like one. When was the second time?
Yeah, he's like, I'm not gonna deny it, but what were they again?
Yeah,
So it's like not only does he screw them over, but he doesn't even remember. It's
yeah.
just very insulting.
And you see Chewbacca back there shrugging, nodding. You're like, yeah, you did.
Yeah, I also like when Han tells Finn, like, you've got a bigger problem. Women
Right,
always figure out the truth. Just says a lot about his relationships and but also I think there's kind of I mean, there's a theme in the whole trilogy about who you really are.
right.
So I liked that too because yeah, he pretends to be in the resistance to impress her,
To impress
but
Ray. Yeah,
yeah, but ultimately, he ends up admitting who he really is, and so I like
yeah.
that too.
I was surprised it like cut it off when it did. He's like, yeah, I was a former stormtrooper. All right. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, okay. We're not gonna go through this. All
yeah,
right.
it's like we've got bigger stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was another really good moment. I'm trying to think of more. Oh, we haven't talked about Hux.
Oh,
But
General Hux.
yeah, so Donald Gleason, which this is the second, well, I guess the third because we've done The Last Jedi too, but the third Donald Gleason movie we've talked about.
Oh,
But I always love seeing him and I think he was a great, he was well cast as General Hux and
yes.
just love how wormy he is and I
Mhm.
don't know. He's a great bad guy.
So I always get the dates. I think this came out before the stuff in Charlottesville, but him screaming about destroying the New Republic just echoes what I see pictures of, like all the hate speech people will do.
Yeah, and in fact, that brings up a good point. There were a lot of people that didn't like this movie because they felt it was too, too social justice warrior-y, and that, you
Right.
know, uh, that they were like a metaphor for neo-Nazis and all that, which is ironic because, I mean, in the original, they were
Yeah.
clearly metaphors for Nazis. So I don't know if your group looks a little too much like the bad guys in a Star Wars movie, maybe time to change groups. Concentrate on that. But I even noticed that in the movies going forward, because some people criticized that all the bad guys were like evil white dudes, that they
Hmm.
diversified the bad guys more going forward and included more women in POC so that people wouldn't make that comparison, which I think is funny that they felt like they had to do that.
Also,
But you're right, it does
they
remind me of that.
right, and they always explained it in well, now the Legends continuity, that Palpatine, the Emperor of the Empire, was really xenophobic. So you didn't really see any aliens. They had women admirals, but yeah, it was just pretty much all white guys.
Yeah, and I feel like, okay, so I mean, it's not that different from, you talked about Harry Potter earlier, and the Slytherin and Voldemort, like they're really xenophobic,
Mhm.
right? Like
Yeah,
I think it's just the mark of being bad. you
exactly.
know it's a classic bad guy characteristic to be intolerant.
Yeah,
um yeah, so it's like they were kind of reading into that a little bit, but you're totally right. I know what image you're thinking of, and it does kind of look like Hugs.
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And of course I love Donald Gleason, and he's not like that, but yeah, the character
No,
for
no,
sure.
yeah, but
I've
yeah,
literally never thought about that before, but I'm not going to be able to unsee that now.
it just popped up to me when I watched it yesterday. I was like, oh, okay, yeah.
um what do you think about BB-8?
Ah, so adorable.
I know. I love BB-8. I
And
He's so much faster, or she. He or she, I don't know. But
Poe calls it a he.
oh, that's right, he does. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I like how quick he is on his little spinning ball.
right. Yeah,
So he's a lot faster than R2D2. Although I pointed out, we were talking about that last night too, like that he's faster than R2D2, but R2D2 is really good with, like the guns in the TIE fighters or whatever.
uh, I always thought that Poe picked him up at a rescue,
Aw,
a droid rescue.
I love that.
Because
A
even
droid rescue.
yeah, because like when you find out Poe's still alive, and you see BB-8 just basically run past and hit Finn to get to Poe. And Poe's like, BB-8. And he like rubs his little ball.
I know he's definitely like a dog.
Yeah.
Very loyal, and it's also super cute when and such a good way to like make them connect. Going back to that marketplace scene with
Hmm.
Ray and Finn, Finn sees BB-8 and he's like, "Oh, that's that droid,
Yeah. He's like,
that
oh,
we're looking for."
yeah.
And then BB-8 sees him and gets really angry. And at first I kind of forgot. I was like, "How does he know he knows Poe?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, his jacket." That was like
Yeah.
a really smart way. And if Poe had died in that crash, that
Uh-huh.
that probably would have had more weight, or you'd be thinking about it a lot longer, because it's like he finally got away with the pilot, then he ends up back, and then that's how he meets Rey. So if all that happened, he would have never met her, and he would have never
Exactly.
become involved with finding Luke.
Hmm.
I think I also forget when I watch this that we don't, like, we only see Luke at like the very end.
Yes. Okay, because the first draft was written by Michael Arndt, who did Little Miss Sunshine, Toy Story 3, and Hunger Games Catching Fire.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And so he had Luke basically showing up in the halfway point, and
Hmm.
it basically became focused more on Luke than the rest of the characters.
I see.
And so when they did a rewrite with Lawrence Kasdan and JJ, they had to make him like at the very end.
Yeah, because it's such a great cliffhanger.
Right.
Like, I could see a plot where he's more involved, but I like him being more involved in the second one,
Mhm.
because it's just such a fantastic reveal at the end.
Yeah.
I think the only tough part. Ooh, we haven't talked about the worst part of the movie, the saddest part of the movie.
Oh,
Han's death, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, what did you think about Han's death? And, like, were you expecting that? Or,
I
how
was
are your feelings
sorry.
looking back on it?
I was expecting it when we walked onto that gangplank,
Yeah.
and so I was like, okay, I know where this is going. Plus, also knowing that Harrison Ford wanted Han to die in Return of the Jedi.
This is true. This is something that people forget. And it's funny because people are like so upset that he died in this movie. And I'm like, y'all, he doesn't want to do this.
Yeah,
He's always kind of been grumpy about being Han. So,
he'd
um,
rather be Indiana Jones than Han Solo.
yeah, yeah. I feel like it's closer to who he is. But yeah, so I kind of expected it too, especially when they were like really milking the like, oh, he's like a father stuff. I was like, oh, great. I know what's gonna happen next.
Yeah,
um there's that great scene where where Kyla's like reading her mind and he's like, you see him as a father figure, he'd disappoint you. And we're going to find out in the second movie just what exactly that means. Because at this point we don't know as much.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, and then like when he, says like he has to find the strength to do what he has to do, but he's crying,
Right.
that's when I kind of thought, okay, Kylo could really go either way.
Yeah, it's
It's not like
yeah.
Anakin, where he's gonna. Anakin always felt like he was like terrible, and he just like got worse. Like, except when he was like a little boy, I never really bought that he was even wavering.
I can go into whole stuff about Anakin. So
I would love to hear that. But yeah, with Kylo, it's like I kind of liked that he was so like unstable because I feel like that's
mhm.
kind of scarier.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't know what way he's gonna go.
yeah. That was one of the things with basically him being a fanboy of Darth Vader. But
Yeah,
I mean,
very dark
yeah.
metaphor for
So
the fandom.
yeah, Kylo Ren is base. Okay, so you get Darth Vader. He's basically how do I put this? More in control, and
Hmm.
that makes him really scary because you know what he can do. But
Right.
then you have Kylo Ren, who's so unpredictable, and he's not in control, so it's just a mess. You
Yeah,
don't
it's
know what
chaotic
he's.
and not really focused.
Yeah, and so like him destroying computer consoles
I love that scene.
or just destroying a room.
Yeah, like again, like when the first time I watched this and you see those moments, I was like, "Whoa, I don't think we've seen a bad guy like this
Yeah.
in the Star Wars universe." I thought it was kind of refreshing because it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, and then when he gets really emotional and like cries, I'm like, "Man, we really don't know what's going to happen with him."
Yeah.
And it's kind of exciting. Whereas, like with Darth Vader, it's like, exactly what he's going to do. Like you said, he's very purposeful and controlled. And in the original trilogy, there was a lot of focus on like controlling your emotions. And then in this trilogy, there's not.
Yeah.
It's almost like embracing your emotions. And I think that kind of says a lot about where we were in the 70s and where we are today
Mm.
in terms of like how we view emotions. I could like
Oh yeah,
go into
definitely.
detail about that. But and I think that's why sometimes older fans have a harder time with it. They're like, "Oh, these characters are like emotional and out of control." And it's like I think we've just sort of the movies have grown with us, and
Yeah.
they've evolved because we have evolved. But I like both plot lines. Both are fun. I'm trying to think. I think those are my favorite scenes.
Some good ones.
Can you think of any other ones that we missed?
Um, oh, one of my favorites is always it was at the very beginning with Finn always grabbing Ray's hand and running.
Yeah, that's cute. I remember seeing a lot of fan art around that after it came out.
And so it's like, stop taking my hand. And then there was a TIE fighter that shot at him and exploded, and he got knocked out a little bit. She wakes him up and he's like, oh, hey, are you okay? It was like,
Yeah, and she seems kind of annoyed, but I think the more she gets to know Finn, the more it's like, even though he's so scared
mm-hmm,
and he doesn't want to go back, he's very, self-sacrificing and very caring.
yeah,
Like what kind of annoys her at first that she thinks of as like almost like male bravado or like, I'm trying to protect you.
mm-hmm,
It bothers her at first, but the more she gets to know him, the more she's like, it's actually just really sweet
yeah.
because even when he's injured or clearly doesn't have a handle on the situation, he's still trying to help.
and
And she ends up protecting him a lot.
you find out in the book that that was the first time someone asked if she was okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, even though that's not like directly
Yeah,
in the movie, they do set up that, her family left and they're not coming back.
yeah, and she's just,
Maz tells her that.
yeah, and she's just been living a awful life.
Yeah. Oh, another good moment too is when she's with BB-8 and that guy tells her like he gives her less than what she's owed for her,
Right.
scrapyard stuff. And then he says, "I'll take the droid. How much is he?" And she has that moment where she looks at him for a long time and she's looking at all that money that she really needs.
All the
And then
too.
yeah, and then against her own best interest, she says, "You know what? He's not for sale." And I thought like some of that was like maybe like her force sensitivity waking up a little bit because she knows to make that decision in that moment for him.
Mm. I think it was also like Finn. She knew it was the right thing to do.
Yeah. She sees those droids as I feel like there's a theme of like the main Star Wars characters treating
Mhm.
the droids like so much better than like
Oh
all
yeah,
the
yeah,
other
definitely.
people do. Luke treated R2D2 really well. They were like friends.
Yeah,
And she
and
kind of recognizes that in
also,
BB-8.
also in all the other side shows and some of the movies, basically Anakin has the same relationship with R2,
Yeah, that's right.
and so I'll say this, but in Episode 3, whenever he actually becomes Darth Vader, is going to kill the Separatists, he's like, "No, R2, stay there."
Yeah,
And
that's
just see
right.
that shift.
Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. The droids are more looked at as people.
Yeah, by the main cast. They're
Hmm.
nicer to them. Yeah.
Um,
I think the movie did a great job of having like I know it is kind of a bummer that you never get like Han, Luke, and Leia in the same room.
yeah.
But, I do think that was possibly a missed opportunity,
Hmm.
especially with, what happened with Carrie
Yeah,
Fisher, but
that was one of the things she said in the making of was, "I wish it would have been done 10 years ago when I looked better."
that's such a Carrie Fisher thing to
Yeah,
say.
and plus now it's like, oh yeah, maybe you should have.
Yeah, I heard that both her and Mark Hamill like went on diets for the movie.
Yeah,
It's just kind of funny. I think she complained about that even in the original series too. She was like, I had to go to like a bikini boot camp
yeah,
for that one scene, and she like complained. I always thought that was really funny and refreshing that a actress would talk about that so openly. Um, but yeah, I remember like I had one friend that was like, I didn't like this movie and I didn't like seeing Leia and Han Solo so old, it was sad. And I was
Right.
like, "Geez,"
People get
like,
old.
you know yeah, people get old, it's like, I can't imagine someone thinking when they see me when I'm old, like, "This is sad, she's so old." It's like, that's it's good.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know, I don't look at it that way. I kinda I liked seeing them all again, and
Oh
it
yeah,
it
definitely.
helped with the, like, passing the baton on kinda
Mhm.
vibe that the movie had, so yeah, I do wish they were all together, but at least we got, like, some Han and Leia scenes,
Oh
and then we
yeah,
got some Leia and Luke scenes,
Luke
so,
scenes, and then
yeah.
yeah. Um, that was one of the things was I was going to mention with the expanded universe now the Legends continuity
Mhm.
was after Return of the Jedi. They basically had. I mean, it went from 1978 to 2014. That's how expansive this uh, collection was, and they had
Yeah.
three pretty big stories. Like there was the Thrawn trilogy where Han and Leia actually had married and were expecting twins,
Yeah.
and so then you had that was another thing that was like a big rumor was Rey was Luke or Han and Leia's daughter.
I mean, I felt like they were even almost implying that in this movie,
Right.
you know? And I was like, that would make her related to Luke too,
Yeah.
you
And that
know?
was the one of the things with they did like this big cast photo of the table read, and they had her sitting in between Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. So everyone
Oh.
was like, "Boom, yep, she's their daughter."
Yeah, I definitely thought I wasn't expecting the answer that we got, and I don't think anybody was. Um, and it definitely felt like they were leading up to that
Yeah,
with the Maz scene, and then even just like how sweet Princess Leia, or well, General Leia,
in general, yeah,
uh
don't call her princess.
was to yeah, she's no longer a princess. But how kind and warm she was to Rey. I thought they had to be related,
Mm,
you know? It was just, yeah, interesting to go back and see this and see how different everything was at that
right.
point.
And then you had there was the Jedi Academy trilogy, which was my favorite, where Luke is basically training Jedi. Uh,
Mm.
he has an apprentice that goes evil
Oh,
thanks
okay.
to
So
a
similar.
Sith spirit, but um, and then there was the big one that was like considered like 19 books called the New Jedi Order, where actually Han and Leia, or yeah, Han and Leia's son Jason went to the dark side.
Oh, okay.
But you also had the
So they kind of
death.
borrowed from all this
Yeah,
stuff, but
yeah,
not
they
really
did.
stayed consistent to. And yet they called all that not canon, but then borrowed so much from it.
Yes,
Interesting.
in that series, you had the death of Chewbacca and
Oh
the
no. I'm
death.
glad that didn't happen.
Yeah, I was expecting that.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so easy to keep that character going because you can
Hmm.
just, he doesn't really have to get old.
Right.
Kind of like C-3PO.
Yeah, you had the death of Chewbacca and Admiral Akbar.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it was just kind of yeah, just take little things from here. It's like, well, of course, Han and Leia could have a kid. All right, yeah, we and he'll be trained by Luke.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
But yeah, that's. I mean, it's like I said, it goes from 1978 to 2014. I mean, you can spend years just reading all these books and stuff.
So I'm so lame that I never read the Star Wars books, but I read a lot of Star Trek novels.
Hmm.
So I was like even
Basically,
nerdier.
about the same thing.
Yeah.
Just
But
different
less
universes.
impressive or cool sounding.
Yeah.
At least when I was growing up. Like people were like, I read Star Wars novels. I'm like, that's cool. I read Star Trek ones. And they were like, oh, yikes. That's really nerdy. But I should go back and read the Star Wars ones because I
Yeah.
really enjoyed the Star Trek ones. And in the past couple of years, I've gone back and read some of them. They're just so fun. And I love sci fi like this. It's like a whole universe. There's just like endless content you can take in.
Big giant
And even though they
sandbox.
said they weren't canon, it doesn't matter, right? Because it's
There's
like,
there's elements that you can just I picked up comic books from like 1994 that had like basically I was reading them and I was like, "Hey, I'm actually starting to see some stuff in here from like Rise of Skywalker."
oh, really?
Yeah. And it's just
Hmm.
kind of like, "Huh, I wonder."
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that they wouldn't have seen that.
Yeah. But they also have whenever Disney took over, they started a story group
Oh, really?
which
Okay.
keeps track of all the canon, if you will, throughout this new continuity.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And that started in 2014. And so basically, I mean, they're the ones that say, "Hey, can I use this?" Like, yeah, yeah, you could. Or
Okay, so they're like the timeline keepers
right,
kind of.
yeah. Or like,
Interesting.
no, you can't use that because this happened and this happened. And
Are the games tied into that or not?
after 2014, they are
Oh, okay.
because that was one of the things was at the very beginning of Force Awakens was like, how did the First Order find out about Poe on Jakku?
Mm.
And so that was thought that there was like a double agent somewhere in the Resistance that would be found out in Last Jedi. But come to find out, it was in the game Battlefront 2 in the storyline.
Is Battlefront the one with the main character that's like that he's like a ginger kid?
No, that was Fallen Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah,
I've watched some like cutscenes from the games and I really enjoy watching those, but I've never played them.
it's fun, but that is a very tough game. The
Oh,
Fallen
really?
Order,
Okay.
yeah.
And the main guy is inspired by that actor that's on that Gotham show, right? Like he
Right,
looks
yeah.
just like him. Yeah. Yeah, it looked cool, but I haven't played it. I'm so behind when it comes to games. I'm like really bad at them now. Like when I was younger, I was so good at it, but I don't know. The longer that we're like staying at home, though, I think about getting a console again so that I can play
I
games.
I,
I'm like, I have a lot of free time.
I kind of had to. I was like, I'm playing all these games and I need something new.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is there another like Star Wars game that's coming out that's pretty big or?
I think the latest one that they announced was the Lego Star Wars,
Oh, okay.
and
I've
that's
heard those Lego games are like really fun,
they
specifically
really
from
are.
parents that like
Yes,
playing with their kids. Yeah.
the Star Wars ones are really fun. The Lego Star Wars, 'cause I think it was like the Xbox for back probably like 2005 or six. They redid the Star Wars. It was like the prequel trilogy.
Okay.
And then I think later on they did the original trilogy, and so now they're releasing one with all of them together plus sequel trilogy. So
Oh, wow. So kind of a lot to look forward to.
yeah. Uh,
Well,
whoa, whoa.
did you have any more about the expanded universe or extended?
Expanded universe? No, that was pretty
Okay.
much that part. I'm going to ask you this.
Okay.
Did you find Lin Manuel Miranda's cameo?
I didn't. Tell me about that.
Okay, so him and J.J. Abrams did the song in Maz's castle.
Oh, okay.
but funny enough, I guess they're best friends because
Oh,
there's one tiny scene in Rise of Skywalker where you actually see Lin Manuel Miranda.
I did not realize that. Okay. I feel like I've heard about that, but then I forgot.
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they did the song in Maz's Castle called Jabba Flow. Oh, also, all right. So only I kind of laugh at this part because I read this book. It was called Journey to the Force Awakens, and it was basically giving Finn's story like right before the movie happens.
Oh, okay.
And
More
so,
background on it.
yeah, a little back.
Cool.
And so, this one part in the movie I always laugh at because Poe basically shoots Finn's best friend, and
Oh
he
no.
marks he marks Finn's helmet with his blood, and it was like, oh my god, your new best friend just killed your old best friend.
Man, that is interesting. Okay. Yeah, did the things that you can't you can only cram so much into a
Right,
2-hour movie, you know?
exactly. And
Interesting.
then, like,
Okay.
one of their squad mates was the stormtrooper who yells traitor at him in the big battle.
See, that would be cool to know, like those extra little
Yeah,
things. I remember the one that yells traitor at him and that has that random weapon
right.
that you're like, where'd he get that and what is that? I remember all the funny gifs of
Yeah,
that went around for a long time.
they even nicknamed him like TR8R as the stormtrooper designation for traitor.
TR8R. That's funny.
Um, but yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that gets me about Star Wars movies is you can watch the movies, but then you can also read the books that give you like even more, like books, comics, any of the media will give you like kind of a more uh I guess a more knowledge based approach to it. Like
Yeah.
that guy was his best friend, or that guy was his
Yeah, it
squad mate.
enhances the viewing for you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
and,
so
that's how I felt about growing up, that's how I felt about Star Trek. It was like,
exactly.
I loved it so much, I couldn't get enough, and so I'd be like, "Oh, I watched all of it, now what?" It was, "Oh, I can read all these books," and then, "Oh, I can, read all these magazines," and, like, I always enjoyed having something to really immerse yourself in, and then you feel like you're in kinda like a little club, of people that know a little bit more about it than just what they saw in the movies. And you're right, I think Star Wars, has such a big universe, and it's great that all that stuff is kinda layered. You can watch the movie, but you can also read the books and read the
Yeah,
comics and kinda get a bigger understanding and a better understanding of
hmm
everything and how everything works.
yeah. I guess it. I I'm not sure you since you're the Star Trek reader, but Star Wars is the only property that I know that there's a backstory basically about everybody that's on the screen.
No, I think it's more in depth with Star Wars. I
Okay,
do think that
okay.
because I think there's just, like, more stuff, like, learning all about, like, the Kaiba crystals and where they come from and,
Oh, for
so
any.
much
Oh,
there.
sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine, go ahead.
Oh, when you mentioned kyber crystals, it remind me of another fun fact that any of the viewers or listeners um, who are big on the Clone Wars TV show, that the planet Ilum, where the Jedi went to go get their crystals, um, it wasn't announced until it wasn't revealed basically until the Rise of Skywalker dictionary that
Oh, really?
Star Killer base is the planet Ilum.
Oh, okay, so they kind of made it sort of full circle and yeah, it's like you already know what it is, it was just called something else.
and
Okay.
and that's another thing with and to go off on another tangent here. It's this movie Force Awakens sets the seeds of basically the first order um, taking away everything that the rebellion built, like their
Mm.
kids. Yeah, like even sacred planets, like for the Jedi, and just kind of twisted to their own. Uh, I can't find the word for that. Uh,
Ideology, maybe?
yes,
Or
yes, yes.
yeah.
Their own machinations, basically.
Yeah.
So
It's true. Yeah.
yeah, you found out that Finn was taken as a young kid. Basically, you even see a
Mhm.
picture of him as a young kid.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, and that was one of the things that, because it was basically talking about they didn't really know how big the First Order was, and
Mm,
you're
okay.
just kind of like wondering, is like, oh, we know they're out there, but
Mhm.
that's pretty much all we know, and you don't see
Right.
it until Poe's face whenever they pull him out of that shuttle, and he's like looking around in the Star Destroyer. It's like, oh,
Yeah, it's like this has gotten worse, significantly
yeah,
worse.
they are so much better prepared than us.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the First Order destroys the New Republic.
I know. I like that though. It's like it sets the stage for it being so bleak, and that's, that's always an exciting comeback story.
Yeah, and you really don't. I mean, I feel bad that they kind of cut this part out, but you were telling like a so much bigger story. But
Mhm.
um, it was Leia talking to her, basically her Senate aide,
Mhm.
and basically like go to them, plead to them that we need help with fighting off the First Order.
Right.
And then that's who you see whenever um, a Starkiller base fires on the planet. Is you see her going out onto the balcony right before it gets destroyed.
Ugh. She's got to be having flashbacks with that too.
Right, poor Leia.
I know.
Yeah, she has the worst of everything.
I know.
And
It's like in the books, don't they imply that like sees like the future somehow, and that's like why she doesn't like continue with like her Jedi ways because
no,
she.
she continued, well, in the expanded. It depends on expanded universe.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, in the old expanded universe, yeah, she's a Jedi. She trains,
Oh, okay.
and
Okay.
she like even teaches her kids and everything. But yeah, in this new one, it was they found out that she's the daughter of Darth Vader,
Yeah.
so she basically gets ousted of the Senate.
Oh, okay. Kind of makes sense because from our vantage point, we're like, she's a hero, but
Yeah,
it's like she's technically Darth Vader's daughter.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, you did great work and everything, but you have this really big black spot on you.
Yeah.
Or
It's like
dark
bad
spot.
lineage.
Yeah,
Yeah, she yeah, in the trilogy, it seems like she's very force sensitive,
yeah.
and she uses the force in the second one, but it's more like a
You
sensitivity than
don't.
it is an
Yeah,
outright
you don't find out
gift.
until Rise of Skywalker. Like
Yeah,
she did train and everything.
yeah.
But I want to read something to you from the Rise of Skywalker book, but I'll have to go over to my bookshelf and grab it really
Oh,
quick.
okay. Yeah, no, take your
Sorry.
time.
All right, it's just about Leia. That's really really poignant. Uh, they're talking about her um, being, her being affected by so much. And one of them says, "I couldn't survive one of those things that has happened to Leia." So knowing that she went through all of that, and plus her son going to the dark side, um, I know some of the real life people that those things have happened to, and they still keep going. That's how you know that someone is really strong and more powerful than anybody else.
Yeah, I've always thought in the original trilogy that she's the strongest character because, you know, Luke's journey is sort of him wavering, right? Is
Yeah.
he has a pull to the dark side, but he ultimately does the right thing. She never really wavers even when her whole planet is
Right.
destroyed,
Right.
and she doesn't even have time to grieve. She's like, "All right, let's get this done." And then she finds out a guy she thinks is cute as her brother, and she's like, "That's weird. Let's get this done."
Yeah.
Like, she's
Exactly.
always moving forward,
Mm.
almost losing Han forever, just so much stuff happens to her,
Yeah.
but she never really gets completely shaken. She's like kind of a rock throughout the series, and you're
Hmm.
right, like in this part she loses her son and things get really bleak several times and she never really gives up hope.
Right. And that was one of the things
Yeah.
is she's since she's the journal in the resistance, but she has
Mhm.
no markings on her outfit because
Oh, I didn't
everyone
notice that.
knows who she is.
Yeah, she doesn't need a name
Yeah.
tag. It doesn't need medals. Yeah, and it's like she doesn't have like a home, to
Mhm.
go back to. And yet that doesn't ever stop her from
Mm.
being a general and not giving up and
Yeah.
feeling like there's always people to save and work to be done. So, yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way.
And that's one of the things I really enjoyed about Rise of Skywalker was her being Ray's master.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, it was the biggest laugh in my theater, but I'm not sure if it was. I don't know if we were in the same showing or not, but how about BB-8 giving a thumbs up?
Oh, yeah, super cute. So cute.
Um, yeah, that's basically all I have.
All right. Well, then that brings me to my last couple of
Okay.
questions for you. Number one, we kind of talked about it this whole time, but if you could sum up, why do you think you love this movie so much?
Um, it reminded me how much I love Star Wars.
Yeah, I have to echo that because I feel like, so I wasn't like a big Star Wars fan. I was aware of them. I
Mm-hmm.
saw the prequels in the theater, and it prompted me to watch. They re-released the originals in theaters, and that was the first time I really sat down and watched it, and it gave me a better respect for it. But I feel like that had kind of waned over the years. Like I was kind of like, and I didn't stay like loyally interested and
Right.
invested. But when this movie came out, it rekindled my interest. Like I went out and bought all of them,
Mm-hmm.
and started getting more interested, and you know my husband started building lightsabers and we got like costumes, and like, I mean, it just changed us,
Yeah.
like this movie kind of did that for me. So I think, even if you don't 100% like everywhere that the trilogy went, I mean, The Force Awakens I think did a lot for the Star Wars franchise in, re-energizing it.
Mm-hmm. It
And
awakened the Force in all of us.
it did. Oh, I love that. Yes, it awakened the Force in me. Um, so if you were to pitch this to someone, this seems like a really crazy
Right.
question to ask about Star
Yeah.
Wars. But what's your theater pitch? What's your
Oh,
elevator
wow.
pitch for this
Okay.
movie?
Um, hey, do you like Star Wars? Hey, do you like
You'll probably love
do
this.
you like special effects? Okay. Well, take today's special effects, but a Star Wars movie. Go.
Yeah, pretty much. I think like I think it does a good job of simultaneously letting us have that nostalgia for the old ones
Right.
while still giving us something new
Yeah.
too.
No.
By having Han and Leia and eventually Luke there,
Mm-hmm.
they're saying, "Hey, this is the same thing that you love," and the characters in the movie are nostalgic for
Oh
it.
yes, yes.
"Oh, this is the real Millennium Falcon. Oh, the real, the real Luke Skywalker." Another great line we didn't mention, but when he's like, "It's all true. It all
Yeah.
happened." When Han says that, that's a
Mm-hmm.
great that part always like almost puts a tear in my eye. So yeah, I think it's a great addition to the Star Wars universe, and it set the tone for us getting more content going forward. So
Exactly.
I appreciate it for that. Well, Joe, thank you so much for coming back.
Oh, no
You
problem.
picked some good movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, keep that list going and would definitely love to have you back. We could do more Star Wars or we could do something else.
Yeah. Anything sounds great.
All right. Well, have a good
Yeah.
one.
You too.